Episode number 127 of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I'm Michelle, a fertility acupuncturist here to provide you with resources on how to create a wholesome approach to your fertility journey. My guest today is Annette Figueredo. Annette is a spiritual fertility coach guiding women through lasting and deep-rooted shifts. As a Universal Kabbalist, Ayurvedic healer, and transformational breathwork instructor, Annette specializes in cleansing, rejuvenating, and moving stuck energy in order to remove the unseen blocks that are getting in the way. Annette works with women and couples who want to get pregnant naturally or through IVF. Annette's program is modeled after the exact methodology that she used to manifest her baby as a first-time mother over the age of 40, when doctors told her she had a less than 5% chance of conceiving. As a licensed massage therapist, yoga practitioner, and holistic wellness counselor over 10 years, Annette understands the importance of nervous system health and the reduction of stress. Annette trains top spas and wellness centers around the world to perform authentic healing protocols designed to detoxify, rejuvenate, and restore balance in the body. Annette's approach to fertility is truly an integrative one, aligning body, mind, and spirit. Annette's mission is to help women unleash their innate abilities to create, nurture, and sustain life from preconception through the sacred postpartum window and create the joyful motherhood experience they've always dreamed of. Welcome to the podcast, Annette.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, me too. I'm excited to have you here. So give us a little background on your journey to become a spiritual coach, working in fertility. I'd love to get everything because I know that you have like a really vast array of talents.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's definitely been a very meandering road to get to where I am today. It's taken many, many years, a lot of experiences, and I'm really very grateful because I wouldn't be where I am today helping the women that I'm helping and doing the work that I'm doing if it weren't for this very meandering approach. So my background actually started off in advertising and marketing. And I did that for about a decade before I realized this just isn't my thing. I want to be helping people. And I knew that holistic wellness was my thing. And so that started a whole 10-year journey, getting all of these different certifications and trainings. I became a licensed massage therapist, an energy healer, and just started on this path of really seeking truth and spirituality. And the more that I studied, the more that I realized how all these different roads were all leading into one path. And as I was on my journey, discovering all these things, learning all these things, working with all these people, I opened up a healing spa in Miami Beach, not too far from where you're at. That was a few years ago. And so as I was working with all these people, doing all these different modalities, I would pick up on all of the areas that had to do with women's health, having babies, what to do while you're pregnant, the postpartum time, which is very important. And I realized what a gift it is to be able to bring your child into the world with consciousness and in a high vibration, which most of us who live in a regular, mainstream, modern lifestyle are not in a high vibration. We are sucked down into the muddies of the world, the muddled world, everything's lower vibration. And so maintaining this high vibration is so important for everything that has to do with bringing about your baby, especially when you're working on conception and talking about conception. So that's what brought me to the work that I'm doing today, is that there's so much that we can do to empower ourselves and to bring about the family that we want in a very high vibration way.
Yeah, and it sounds like what you're saying is instead of being reactive to what we're given in the world and kind of just working on whatever the vibration the world gives us, being proactive and kind of going within ourselves to improve, to really be our potential.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's kind of like, the approach of people only go to the doctors when something's wrong with them.
Right.
So that's the whole holistic approach, is like, we want to be proactive and stay ahead of the curve. We
Mm-hmm.
don't, if something's wrong, of course we're going to go to the doctor, but we want to catch it before we have to go to the doctor and do a surgical procedure or something that's pretty invasive. So the same approach can apply to fertility. We want to be ahead of the curve and be proactive about how we're going to go through our process.
Yeah, it sounds, I mean, it's something that definitely people may not realize. It's kind of like not the routine or the first thing that people think about when going through it. But yeah, I've heard so many times when people go through the fertility journey, it teaches them so much. It gets them to think about their diet and what they're doing. And it really, in some senses, sometimes eventually the world will give you a wake-up call to think about, basically, have you been giving your body enough attention? Have you been really feeding your own energy spiritually?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so what are the different modalities that you approach working with women?
Well, so I actually use sounding as a technique, and that is integral to everything that I do, because manifestation and its pure form is one of the things that I work with. So it's about universal laws and bringing the laws of the universe into your fertility journey. And I help women bring that into their being, into their lives, so that they are embodying the laws that actually are positive and creating the forces that they want in their life. And so one of the principles that I use is the power of the spoken word. Mm-hmm. And this is key to manifesting what we want in our life. And so using our words as a tool for creation can be so, so, so powerful. And that's what I teach. That's, at the heart of a lot of my classes, and women who go through my programs learn this, and they learn how to use the word to create. So using the word for creation, which is what we're doing. We're bringing about life. And, if you look back at even in the Bible, in the Gospel of St. John, it says, in the beginning was the word. So Right. It was the word that created the entire universe.
Yeah.
And so if we don't think that our words have power, we are not paying attention. Like, we're missing something. And as we go through life, we're so used to, hedging our bets, not going all in. We're afraid of rejection. There's a lot of things that make us kind of dampen our words, hide and be small and not be like overly confident. And so that can have an effect, because now we're manifesting that through our own words. So it's really important to know what we're creating just by the choice of the words that we're using on a daily basis. And it's so important and so powerful, and is a huge tool that you can use in your fertility journey.
And so how do you use that word? How do you use that power?
So there's so many different ways. One is, just having the feedback, because we're so ingrained in our patterns, right? So it's very unlikely that we will pick up all the ways in which we're using our words in the wrong way, because it takes somebody else to call you out on it. Mm-hmm. So that's also the power of a coach and the power of a guide, or a power of a practitioner that is trained mm-hmm. to pick that out and to see it, so that then you can see it. It all is about awareness. If we're not aware of it, then we don't know to shift it, or we don't know to change it, or we don't know what we can replace it with. Mm-hmm. So it's so important to have someone that's trained in helping you understand where it is that you're stopping, just by the use of your language, your own language. And what we say, the words that we use, actually originate in our mind. So mm-hmm. our thoughts actually create, and our thought is the unspoken word. So there's the spoken word, and then there's the unspoken word. Both of them are creating. They're both forms of the word. So our thought and our mind is an incredible manifestation tool. We just have to know how to use it. We have to know how to use it the right way, because the right words will create the right circumstances in life, but the wrong words will create pain and suffering. So it's really learning how to use that. And so one thing that's critical is that feedback. Like left to our own devices, we're going to continue to repeat the same patterns because we're so used to it. We don't even see our own stuff.
Right.
You know, it really requires the feedback of someone who's been trained to call that out so that you can shift it. So that's one thing, is having that feedback is critical. The other thing, like the way that I work with my women, is we actually do sounding. So I use sound as a manifestation of the word. So mantras is huge. Like I'm really big on mantras, and mantras is the spoken word used in a vibrational way. So we are creating vibration with the sounds of our voice. So I mean, I take a super spiritual path and a super spiritual approach to all of this. So if we think about using sound as vibration, we are also creating a specific vibration just with the sounds of the words, of the mantras. And then if we look at what is a mantra, there is a seed sound that is a mantra. That's like the very beginning of sound. It's the very beginning of words. The very beginning of language is a seed sound. So one of the ways that I work with people in my community is that we actually learn how to do seed sounds. And so you can say, for example, Ma is a seed sound. Ma happens to be the seed sound for March. And as we move into April, Ra is the seed sound for April. So we do sounding. And if you like, we can go through a seed sound together if you want at the end, and we can, I can show you what that sounds like, because it's all about creating the vibration. As a body worker, a massage therapist, energy healer, yoga practitioner, meditation instructor, I am super experiential. There's one thing about rationally thinking about something and knowing what to do and being aware and all of that stuff. But the other thing is really feeling it and bringing it into your body. So once you do an exercise, it's an experiential experience. You will feel differently afterwards. And that's all part of creating this vibration. So you have to work at it at the level of the mind and our thought patterns, but we also want to bring ourselves into a new state of being. And that's experiential. You've got to feel it. You've got to be in a new state. And so it all works hand in hand to make that happen and to bring that new reality into being. So I work a lot with manifestation, and I work with vibration, and I work with sounds, and using our body as an instrument for healing and our body as a vehicle for healing, including our vocal cords and how we are speaking.
And so just for people who haven't heard about it, so seed mantras are really based in Sanskrit.
Yeah, so seed sounds are the primordial sounds of the universe. So it's like Ra, Ma, Om is a seed sound. And there's different seed sounds for different months of the year, for the different chakras, there's different seed sounds. So based on what lineage you're looking at, it varies based on how, what you want to apply it to. And I have my seed sounds that I apply to fertility. So Ma happens to be one of them, because Ma is about the mother. It's also the moon energy. So you have Ma, and then the mother, and then you have Ra, which is the father. So Ma is that water energy. Ra is that masculine father energy. And, we've talked before, I bring a lot in about the polarities into the work that I do as well, the masculine and the feminine polarities, and becoming receptive and really embodying that moon mother energy for motherhood. So that's all in the Ma. The Ma is the seed. So as Universal Kabbalists, so I'm going to bring in the Kabbalah part of it. As Universal Kabbalists, we know that all the power is in the beginning. And that because if you think of like a seed and then a tree, it eventually will manifest into a big blown out tree. All the power is in that seed. So the same applies to seed sounds. The seed sound is the very beginning of language. So if we start to work with seed sounds, we are working with the beginning. And then we can bring with intention what we want to manifest. So we can actually use seed sounds as a way of creating what we want. But if we know that Ma is the seed sound that represents and symbolizes motherhood and the moon energy and the femininity and water, we can start to bring in more of that into our life so that we are embodying that of being like a mother, even though we may not be a mother yet. Mm-hmm. We become like the mother, and then eventually we are the mother, because everything that you create in the energetic state eventually comes to pass in the physical form. It first begins vibrationally in the energetic space, and then it comes into physical reality, into the physical form. And it is law. Like whatever you have spiritually, whatever is created, whatever pattern is there on a spiritual level will crystallize into physical matter.
Right. And you work a lot of times with blocks or removing blocks. What are some of the, I guess, everybody is unique, but what are some of the common blocks that you've seen?
Oh, goodness. So the common blocks is a lot of times it's what originated from childhood. And I don't even want to say a lot of times. I will go and dare and say it is every time. The blocks come from what happened during childhood that then get reactivated as we go through life, and a partner leaves us, or something happens at work, or a best friend betrays us, or things like that reactivate the wounds that first became ingrained in us in childhood. And so those are almost always what keeps coming up and can be what's blocking us from opening up, being receptive, being able to bring in the new life. It can actually be a shutting down, a closing, and a holding on, a trying to control, because we are afraid of showing ourselves vulnerably and authentically. Because when we do, what's happened in the past shows us we get hurt, and we're trying to protect ourselves. We're self-preserving people. We try to, as humans, we're always trying to protect ourselves as a survival mechanism. So again, this also comes into the significance of having that feedback, having that coach, and having someone to guide you, because left to our own patterns, we retreat. We let those walls come up. And then if you're in a relationship where you've got this kind of dynamic happening where both people have their walls up, there's no real like receptivity and love and authenticity. And it's all about preventing ourselves from getting hurt, which is fear-based. You're not creating what we could be creating. And you're not leading love and authenticity. And so a lot of this work is very simple. It's just about that. It's about bringing down our walls so that we can lead with love and authenticity. The theory is simple, but actually doing it is a different.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, some people may know exactly where their fears came from. They can even remember the specific experience that they had in their childhood, but yet to actually get into the subconscious mind and change that and shift that is very challenging.
It really is. And the grooves in our subconscious mind, are so patterned, and they've been happening over and over and over again. And that's why it's almost like a leap of faith you have to take. You have to believe more in the possibilities of the future that's uncertain. So you have to believe more in the uncertainty than you do in what has shown up.
Right. So like your past doesn't predict your future.
Exactly. And it's so difficult to do. It's so
because
difficult.
It proves itself to predict the future a lot of times, because subconsciously we believe that to be reality. We've accepted it. We've identified with it. So therefore we're going to repeat it. And that in a weird way feels more safe, because you know what's coming. It's kind of a strange relationship. It's like a love-hate.
Yeah, it's like that familiarity thing. Like if you were abused as a child, you tend to attract a partner that's going to be abusive, because even though you consciously don't want it, right? you're still drawing it in vibrationally. You're still expecting that. Something about you is saying, I don't deserve anything else. This is the way it is for me. Vibrationally, on a level that's not understood rationally, that's what's happening. And so you keep attracting it until you can heal it. And what you have to do is you have to go way, way down into the bottom to see what are those real childhood wounds. And once you heal it and you replace it with something else, and then you have to work on keeping that in your new reality, because it's not like it ever really truly goes away, but it's a work in itself, just in shifting. Once you're aware of it, you can work to shift it. Every time it comes up in your life, or a thought that comes up, then you know. But there's work that has to be done for you to get to that point, to see it, to recognize it, to know it, and then to know what to do about it.
Right. And it's like, again, it's so challenging. So what are some steps? You had mentioned sound. Like, what are some steps people can take? Some people out there, they've been hit by the pandemic. They can't afford to work with a coach. For people who just want to take action now and want to get proactive about it, what are some of the things that they can do to become more liberated from those blocks?
Yeah. So one of the things that is like always works is dropping down to your heart. So if you can think of anywhere that you can take a class, any type of yoga class, any type of meditation that you can find that's going to bring you down into your heart. So you look at, YouTube, and, there's tons of resources, tons of people, wonderful people doing all kinds of work in this area. So we want to open up the heart. And I mean, I know it sounds like a little cliche, like self-love and opening the heart, but it is really true. It really does work. Because once we come into authenticity, and authenticity is about acceptance. Like we can't be authentic with other people if we don't accept who we truly are on the inside. If we're still trying to prove a point, or come across a certain way, like looking good is a really big deal. But at the base, at the root of looking good, trying to look good to other people or pleasing others, at the root of it is a disbelief in oneself, or a belief that you're not good enough. So that's why it's always important to look good in front of other people. Right.
So it's like a symptom.
Yeah. And like to be perceived as, always doing the right thing, or looking good to others. You don't want to look bad. You don't want to push people too much because they may not like you. All of these things, at the root of it, it's this feeling of disbelief, or not being good enough. And so you cannot truly show up authentically to your partner, to your children, to your family members, to your friends, if you don't really believe in yourself, and if you don't accept yourself. So that acceptance is so important. And acceptance looks like it's not controlling. It's not trying to control the outcome. It is not judgmental. It is not critical. It is not about trying to make everything perfect, and perfectionism, which is rampant in our society. I think a lot of people just trying to do everything perfectly, and that prevents you from actually taking any action, because then things are never perfect enough. And so you don't put things out, and you don't do things, you don't move forward. So a lot of it is about just acceptance and being like, it is okay where it is. Of course, we're always continuing to move forward and up level ourselves, and we're always improving and doing better and better. But you have to accept where you are now, and accept yourself, flaws and all, so that we can also accept the ones that we love in our life. Because if we are having a hard time with communication with others, or getting along with others, we might be judging. We might be coming from a place of control. We might be wanting to be attached to a specific outcome. And so that prevents the flow from happening. And a lot of times it's because of this overly judgmental critic of our own selves. It's, we talk about this all the time, where other people are a mirror to ourselves. So we don't want to believe it. And we think, okay, that might be true for other people, but that's not true for me.
Right.
We think that all the time. But really, if you're coming at it from a place of real authentic responsibility, you can see how you source some of these dynamics in your life. It may not be apparent at first.
Yeah, what's interesting is it's not just even judgment on like the people, but it's also judgment on the process of life, right? We judge how it's going to play out. We judge that it's not going to work out before, that's really, we judge how life should be for us. And so it's kind of like it may not work in this linear way, and it's never going to be like the next person, because every single person has a unique path. We all come with our unique path. And so is it good or bad, or is it just the process? It's kind of an interesting thing. And of course, obviously, it's difficult, it's challenging, but is it, it's just interesting the meaning that we make.
Absolutely. And that goes with intention and also with consciously creating with our words, which first begins with our thoughts. Mm-hmm. So, we've covered a lot of different angles to look at it here. One is about healing childhood wounds, and then the other is about, creating in our life what we want by consciously using our words. And, there's such a big connection between the mind and the body. And that's what I love about your podcast, the wholesome way to fertility. It really is a holistic approach, and you cannot separate the mind from the body. And so I know that's a lot about what we're talking about here. And if we think about our thoughts and how our body actually manifests what we believe and what we're thinking, it's crucial. It is like so important to get our thoughts on right, because we will be manifesting what we believe. And it is just so important. Impure thoughts will actually create impure blood. And when our blood is not pure, and when there's things happening there, it's going to manifest physically. Mm-hmm. As an Ayurvedic, as an Ayurvedic practitioner, we know that manifests in our skin, mm-hmm. right? So when we don't have clear blood, people who have like acne and things like that, that's a result of a lot of anger. It can be a result of anger. So what is anger? It's an emotion. Where does the emotion begin with? It begins with thoughts that then led to the feeling of anger. And now it's in our blood. And then that's creating the impurities that we see in our skin.
It's interesting that you're saying that, because I just had Bruce Lipton on, who's just amazing. But he talks about that. So many things that you're talking about make me think about it. The fact that we're talking about our childhood up to 7 years old, we're like walking hypnosis, like experiments. We're basically getting hypnotized. And then also, and so that kind of stays within our minds and our subconscious mind. And then also he said, he looks at petri dishes, and what's our internal petri dish is our blood. And our blood responds to our emotions. Does it have stress hormones? Or does it have things like oxytocin, which is love hormones? And, so it's kind of an interesting thing. It's completely correlating with that. Yeah.
Well, and this is why I love mantra so much, because mantra can change our physical body. With mantra, we actually activate the parasympathetic nervous system. We actually affect the glandular system with mantras, and it cleans the blood. It just has a thing where it positively affects our endocrine system. So our hormones are becoming more balanced in a positive way, where we can actually activate oxytocin with the mantras.
Right. So the vibration, the actual vibration that we're feeling within ourselves, because we're sounding it. What's interesting is you said the mind and the body are the same, and what's connecting it, the throat, the voice.
Yes. Absolutely. And, if we could even take it a step further, sound is sacred. Like if you think of sound, you can't see it, right? Like I'm speaking, you cannot see sound, yet in the physical world, we can definitely hear it and you can feel it. You can feel sound. And so it's a spiritual tool that is a bridge between the spiritual world and the physical world. That's what sound is to me. And so I use sound as that bridge. We can actually go from the gross, like the where we live, the physical reality, into the subtle with the use of sound. Sound can take you from darkness to light, from duality to divinity to unity. Sound is a sacred tool, and it's amazing what we can do. And some of us don't even realize we're going around saying all kinds of things. We don't even know what we're creating just by the words that we're using.
Right. We have this power, like it's crazy power. We're like basically driving a very powerful vehicle and not knowing how to really use it.
Yes. And it's like, I will say just one quick thing about that can help anybody. Is just don't gossip. Because when you say something about somebody else, you have no idea the chain of reactions that you're creating. And now you're becoming karmically responsible for how somebody else thinks of someone. That's creating. So you're creating by your thoughts and the thoughts you have implanted in somebody else. That's now creating a negative reality for the person that you're both thinking about.
Right. And it also, it like dehumanizes people.
Yeah.
Because it becomes like a label, a judgment, and it's dehumanizing. At the core, every person is precious. Like if you really get to know people, and it's interesting because one person can have two different relationships, and one person may really connect and love that person, see that person for who they really are. And then another person can come at the person from a judgment. And I think doing so, you're actually shortchanging yourself, because you can really benefit from people if you see their inner light. So it's kind of an interesting thing. I always think about like, the gossip, it takes away the spirit, takes away the humanity, and just labels a person, and it's false. Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. And, I love what Dr. Levry, my spiritual teacher, says, that God sits at the tip of your tongue. So if we think about it, I'm going to break out into tears just thinking about it. Every time we speak, we can be speaking to uplift. And if you think that God is at the tip of your tongue, you will use your words much more wisely.
Yeah.
Not every word that comes out of your mouth, God is creating through that.
Yeah.
So
I think that most people don't realize the power of their word. I think that really comes down to it. So people might say things and not think about it. Even with their kids who they love so much, sometimes they'll just say something and not think about it. And it's not that they're trying to hurt, but they just don't think that their voice or words have that much power. But yet the child is so impacted by their words. I think that really comes down to that. It comes down to not realizing just how powerful we really are.
Yeah. And I mean, something even as simple as, I will use my own mother as an example, like, cuidado que te vas a matar in Spanish, right? That means be careful, you're going to kill yourself. Oh my goodness, please don't ever say that again, you know? And that's common. Like my family is Cuban, so it's common. As a child growing up, I heard that all the time. Like, you're gonna fall down the stairs and kill yourself. Oh my goodness, like, don't be saying that. So as parents, sometimes things like that we heard in childhood will just come out automatically when we're bringing up our own children. So it's really important to cut that at the root and like remember that we don't have to raise our children the way that we were raised, and that our words do have tremendous power. And so that's just like a very innocent example that I'm like, I will hear it being said sometimes, and I have to like put a stop to it.
Yeah. No, and I think that for me, a big shift was when I saw the book Messages in the Water. That proves the power of words. It's just incredible.
It changes physical matter on a cellular level. You can see how the vibration is creating harmonious patterns in the water versus, patterns that are not synchronized, that are scattered and all over the place. There is a harmony with the harmonious sounds, and with certain sounds like love. Creates harmony, creates a pattern of harmony. And you can actually get in the water molecules. It's unbelievable.
It really is unbelievable. So yeah, everybody has to look into that. You can actually find it online. You don't even need to get the book, but I recommend getting the book. And there's a video on it as well. It's Messages in the Water. I'm not going to pretend to know the name of the author, but it's Messages in the Water. If you Google that, you'll find it. It's absolutely incredible. All these crystals. It's a scientist that looked at different vials of water that were given different words. So it basically is a Japanese name. You'll recognize it. Okay, that's it. And yeah, it's incredible. But like the crystals really reacted. The crystals, when they froze the water, were just amazing interpretations or reflections of the words. And you'll see they appropriately shifted depending on the words.
Yeah, and it's all vibration based.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what sound is.
Exactly. That's right.
So we can use sound in a conscious way to raise our vibration.
It's just remarkable. It really is. And I think also about the 4 agreements, how he talks about, like the first one was be impeccable with your word. And it'll really reflect in your life.
Principle. Yeah, so being impeccable with your word is a key. It's a key principle in spirituality and just in manifestation in general, because you're completely congruent. So what's in your inner world is what shows up in your outer world. It's what shows up in your reality. What's in your outer world is exactly what's inside of you. There's total congruency, total transparency. And when you can get to that point, which is a total art, but when you can get to that point, then that is when you are totally congruent and you're manifesting exactly what you're feeling, exactly what you're thinking. That's another form of manifestation, is becoming impeccable with your word.
Right. And then we talk about, it's not even just outward words. It's how do you speak to yourself in your mind?
That's exactly right. Because the words that we speak, the spoken word, directly comes from our thoughts. So our thoughts are the seed. The thoughts are the seed. And how we speak is exactly resulting from that. So it is the silent conversations of our mind that matter the most, because that's what will eventually turn into the spoken word. So it's all about our mind and our thoughts. And this is the trick. You know what you're thinking, because we get so many thoughts, right, on a day. You'll know what you're thinking by closely monitoring your words that you're speaking. Yeah. Use the words. We can work backwards to affect the mind by really monitoring our speech and writing down when you have a negative word or when you have a negative thought. If you're really conscious of it, if you're really aware, you can track it. And then you can look at your belief system and say, wow, I can't believe I actually said that. What am I thinking? What do I believe that's making me say this?
Right.
And so it's a really good way to start to tap into what's going on beneath the surface, is by looking and observing at your words, looking at your words and observing them. So not everyone will do this. It takes work. It takes patience. It takes practice. But that is, if you want to become a manifester of great things in your life, that's what it takes. You've got to be diligent. Like, you've got to be on it. You can't say, okay, well, I didn't really mean that. Like, no, your words are creating. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, this was so inspiring, and it's these little reminders. I think that on some level we know, and then when we hear it, it really gets us to put our attention towards it and really start to become aware of how those things are impacting our own lives. So for people who want to reach out and find you, how can they find you?
So you can go to my website, which is AnnetteFigueredo.com. So that's a good way. Also on YouTube, the same channel, Annette Figueredo. Just look me up on YouTube with my first and last name. I've got a podcast as well that it's like I haven't really done too much with it, just because there's so much going on, as you know. But I have a podcast that you can find through there as well. It's a little bitty one that will grow with time. And it's about a lot of wisdom that I'm imparting and teaching and things like that you can find there. But my website will have the links to everything. AnnetteFigueredo.com.
Awesome. I'll have all the links anyway on the episode notes. your website, which leads to everything else, correct?
Yes,
Awesome.
yes. And, Michelle, I'd love to leave with one seed sound, because I know as traditional Chinese medicine is in the work and the women that you see physically, there is a seed sound that is actually really good for the kidneys.
Which are good for reproductive energy.
Kidneys are so important, right, for fertility. And it's, having strong adrenal glands and making sure that we're not stressed out, that's actually very important. And so there is one seed sound that I'd love to share, because I think that your listeners and your personal clients will really love it. And it's something that you can work with and that they can work with to strengthen their kidneys.
Love it.
So it's the seed sound is K, and it's spelled Khei. And when we do a seed sound, we do it in like 3 different parts. So you really enunciate. So it's like K. So the 3 parts would be the K, the E, and the E. So you think of it like in those three parts. And so I can just do a demonstration of it. When we do seed sounds, we do it 3 times, no more than 11 times in one sitting. And so if you do this with me, you will feel a shift in your energy field, and you're actually lining things up in your body to harmonize with what the seed sound represents. And in this particular instance, we'll have the intention of strengthening the kidneys. So let's use, let's use silver triangle mudra. So you can bring your thumb to your ring and your pinky finger, and these 2 fingers stay up. So this replenishes your body, which is good for also restoring the kidney energy. And you can close your eyes, and we'll inhale through the nose and exhale just to clear. And then I will do it once with an inhale through the nose. And if you're at home, you can repeat that 2 more times. So if you're following along at home, so you would do this for a total of 3 times. And you can do that every day. And it's really good for, revitalizing that area of the body and replenishing the adrenals.
I love that. That is so great. Well, thank you also for adding that and giving people something to take home with them. That's great. This was really a wonderful, wonderful episode. I really love talking about the power of the word. I think just the thought that we have so much power as people, as humans, it's just a beautiful thing to think about. Yeah. So thank you so much for coming on today.
You're so welcome, Michelle. It was my pleasure to be here with you. I love you. I love everything you're doing. So I'm so excited to be here and to be representing this work for this community.
Oh, that's great. So that concludes today's episode. You can find all of the links mentioned on the episode notes. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to share and leave a review. Reviews mean everything to podcasters, and I really enjoy hearing from my listeners. You can also find me on my website at www.thewholesomelotus.com or email me at info@thewholesomelotus.com. I love hearing from my listeners. If you're interested and want updates as well as a free ebook on my top 10 fertility boosting habits, you can visit my fertility page on www.thewholesomelotus.com. I thank you so much for listening in and hope that you have a beautiful day.